sort of, for Americans, it's Thanksgiving. That's their big deal, you know, back in end of whatever it is, end of October or November or something. So for us, it's really Christmas, isn't it? Well, I suppose it's twice. It's Americans as well. So yes, it's like, yes, okay, let's think about that. Well, Lama would talk about that. He wouldn't go on about, Lama would talk about that. Yes, I know the very first talk. He'd give these talks at Kopan Monastery. All the hippies would come for the classes in the November course, so that then would bump into Christmas. So he'd give a little talk about Christmas. But I think the one for me I want to talk about is really because it's a gathering of people, isn't it? And we know people we usually fight with and harm and get mad at are the close ones. It's sort of the irony, isn't it, of this is family, and it's family, of course, especially the ones we've lived with since we're born, or we've known since we're born. You know, it's a very big danger. That and so let's analyze this from the Buddhist perspective. It's very fascinating. I mean, we know if we're Buddhist, we hear about, Buddha talks about body, speech, and mind, but it sort of sounds kind of boring. Yeah, we got the body. Yeah, we have the speech, and yeah, we have the mind. So of course, as we know, if we know half anything about Buddhism, it's about his expertise is the mind. But actually, that's advanced. And this is not joking, really. It's not joking. I mean, for example, Lama Zopa says, and I always quote this, and it sounds very shocking. Rinpoche says, the vast majority of people on this planet, please hear the words, the vast majority of people on this planet have absolutely no idea that what goes on in their mind plays any role at all in their lives. And what he means by that is in their happiness and suffering. I mean, we know what goes on in your mind plays a big role in when you cook a cake or you play music or you play football. You have to have the theories in your head. We know that. But when it comes to happiness and suffering, and it's really true, I think, we really don't think that what goes on in our mind plays a role, because we think happiness and suffering are the direct result of the outside world. I mean, that's pretty clear, isn't it? So, but before we get anywhere near there, given that our mind runs the show, given that what goes on in Buddha's view, given that whatever does go on in our mind really is the source of our happiness and suffering, as shocking and as cliched that can sound, we've been hearing it some of us for 50 years. Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard? Well, one of the reasons is because we haven't yet even begun to control the servants of our mind. And guess what that is? That's your body and your speech. And as I like to say to most of us, we probably don't go around killing and stealing and lying too often, but it's our speech that's the problem. I mean, it's almost like, it is like a cliche to say it. You know, it's the speech that's the problem. So we get very confused. We hear Buddha talk about meditation and the mind. I want to see my mind. I want to meditate. We wonder why there's so much chaos. We can't control it. Well, part of the reason is because the servant, in this case, the speech, the servant of our uncontrolled mind is completely uncontrolled. I mean, some people, and I find them marvelous, some people have naturally good behavior. They're born in this life. They must have some karma of good ethics. They behave nicely. The words that come out of their mouth are nice. The things they do with their body, they kind of got some elegance, you know, and they're controlled. They've got good ethics. I think it's incredible. I admire those people. I remember Lama Yeshe, you know, with me in my life, I'm always been uncontrolled behavior, uncontrolled, my mouth. I didn't beat up too many people, but I remember I would always get into trouble with the different centers I worked, you know, a big mouth. And Lama, one time I was all self-piteous with Lama and complaining about myself to him. And it always the way Lama talked, he would just give a sentence. He would say one phrase and it would kind of like be rainbows from the sky. It would be like so powerful for me, you know. And he just looked at me and he said, "There's nothing wrong with your heart, dear. It's just your behavior." And it was like a revelation, because you think, oh, I would think, oh, I'm bad, you know. Nothing wrong with your heart, dear. It's just your behavior. And what he meant was uncontrolled speech. I'd always get into trouble. I'd be abusive. I'd be shouting too much, you know, or whatever. And that's the story of my life. And it's a story of many people's lives, you know. So the one about speech is what I want to talk about. There's this wonderful meditation, which some of you might know if you join the meditation. I do it in the Santa Fe Center in the mornings, the express meditation for 30 minutes. When it's my turn for 1 month, once a week, that's always the one I choose. And it sounds so weird, doesn't it, to do a meditation on your speech, visualizing, purifying your tongue. It sounds hilarious, you know, but it's the more I think about the Buddhist teachings, the more this becomes so real. And I mean, guess what? I've been hearing this for many years, and it's only now, after all these years, that really the profoundness of it really gets at me, you know, that if we can learn to harness the energy of our body and speech, which is, you know, we don't get into trouble. And some people are like that, but the problem is, isn't it? This is the problem. Some people have good behavior, but because they don't see their mind, and they're the people who get depressed and suppress everything, because we don't have tools to look at our mind. So we've got to learn to control our behavior in the framework of understanding Buddha's bigger picture, which is that the mind is what drives our speech. And it's sort of so obvious, it's a joke. It's obvious that whatever comes out of your mouth, which is the concept, is an expression of what's in your mind. But we don't join the dots in our culture. It's kind of weird, you know, we don't notice, because we don't have tools to pay attention to our mind until we really meet the Buddha, quite frankly, unless we go to a therapist and start to look into our minds. So the one of speech is incredible. And there's a saying the lamas have. They say, when you're with others, control your behavior, which means zip the lip. Excuse me. And when you're on your own, then, and I'm adding this, you have the luxury now to watch your mind. It's very personal. And if we do get to the point of being advanced enough that we can also be watching our mind while we are controlling our behavior, then we're really advanced, pretty good. So the danger when we're with others is speech. It's so obvious, you know. I always quote this, and maybe I said it last year, who knows, but my family, you know, I always say there are 7 of us, but now since last year, there's only 6. One died. Jan, my sister, died in Middle Park, not very far where I saw you, Peter. My sister lived 1 block away. And like a few months ago, 3 months ago, she fell down the stairs and died. You know, she hit her head, smashed her head, actually. Her poor little brain got disintegrated. Anyway, there are 6 of us now, and it's still the same. But for the last many, many years, there are 7 of us, all they were very close in age, right? All very volatile, like me, big bossy girls, 6 of us girls, 1 boy at the end, poor brother. I always joke and talk. Australians will understand this. He got born during Dad and Dave. Any old Australians left? He got born during Dad and Dave. That was the, you would, Rosanna. It's this radio show, all these radios, you know, when my grandmother, we didn't have television in the early 50s, and he was born in 53. He was the last of 8 children, actually. And he was born at 7:15 on the evening of Sunday night when Dad and Dave was on. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget this hilarious Australian radio show. My grandmother would listen to all these radio shows. He was born during that. And I always have this memory. My father, who had 7 daughters, kind of ran the length of the main street, Murrumbina Road, to rejoice, but I don't think he did. I just visualize it as that. It's when my brother Tony was born. Anyway, what I'm getting at is we're very close in age, all kind of very close. My mother had 8 babies in 9 years or something. And we're very volatile. So naturally, we would fight as children. We would fight. We'd never have beds, always on top of each other, you know, like families. But at the same time, there's some solid kind of ground between us. We did love each other, and there was good ethics between us. So there really was. So we managed to survive, you know, we'd forgive each other. And then over the years, we'd all leave home and then go and do our own trip and come back and have Christmas, and people have a drink, and suddenly, before you know it, you're fighting. And you know, we all know there's only so much you can bear before there's some straw that breaks the camel's back. There's some point at which you just feel you can't see your sister anymore. This is so common. We see this in families. For me, it's just tragic, the number of breaks in families, schisms. Sometimes families break up into 3 groups, you know, and it's because of speech. They're not killing each other. They're not raping each other. I mean, often it's not just that, but this is a common one. So I can see that with our family, and we come back together, and we have to be really careful, you know. But the last many, many years, I can't remember when, I don't even know who started it, you know. And this is not trying to make all my sisters seem like God, because they're not. But there's some kind of this, I've spoken this many times, this unspoken agreement, pretty much, these many years, that has really grown. When we're together, we do not argue about things we disagree with. And there's lots of things we disagree with, have many different views. And when we talk to each other, which is quite frequent, we don't badmouth each other. In fact, so what I'm seeing is even now, we even rejoice to each other about each other's qualities. We praise each other's qualities. I remember a friend of mine was listening to me talking to one of my sisters, and she was astonished at how much affection we showed each other with our speech, you know. But that's come over time. It really, because it's been this conscious decision to zip the lip, this conscious decision. And what I've found, not just theory, is because we're consciously not saying the bad words, not bad mouthing behind backs, and not fighting with each other, what it does is you don't just kind of act like Pollyanna, it gives space to find the common ground. And this is the classic one. It gives space for other things in our mind to come to the surface, other discussions. So then it becomes really friendly and affectionate. And I can only just tell you my experience, and I can't stress it enough. And we know that families are the bane of our lives because we've been so close to each other all our lives. Sometimes we have to avoid them because it's just too much for us. That's fine. Be reasonable, be intelligent. But if you are going to be around your family at Christmas, remember that one. And that means instead, and that also, you see, it also means this. Let's say you've got a husband and 5 children, and they all know how you fight with your sister, and you always moan and complain about your sister when you're with your family. You don't tell your sister or your other sisters, but, oh, this wretched sister, this, and she, this. They all know how you feel. So what you've done is you've built yourself up for all this aversion. You get to Christmas lunch, and of course you're going to fight. So how about also zipping the lip and not talking about your sister to your family? Leave it alone. Just leave it there. Know you have aversion. Know you have a difficulty, but we don't have to tell everybody. We have this terrible yearning to vomit out everything we feel, you know. We don't have to. We can learn to be grown-ups. We can learn to, you know, because I think we're not in our culture, unless we have a therapist, we don't have tools of dealing with our own thoughts and feelings. We just don't have that. We don't learn to be our own therapist, like Namayeshi puts it. He's not kidding, you know. So this is what we have to learn to do. We don't, and you know, you can't expect not to have a problem if all you do is shout and yell at about your grandmother behind her back. And then when you get to lunch, don't be surprised you're going to shout at her. But how about you don't shout at, you think about, you don't badmouth your grandma behind her back. You don't talk about her. You know that grandma's like this. She's been like this all her life. Let her be. And then you program your mind, knowing you're going to go for Christmas lunch, you're going to be there for 4 hours, instead of resisting and resenting and trying to sort of like passive aggression, zip your lip, you decide, I'm going to go for 4 hours, and I know grandma's there, and I know drunken old Fred's there, and I know who's going to be there, and I let them say and do exactly what they like, and I will be there for them. They've got me for 4 hours. I'm yours for 4 hours. You make a decision like that, and then you will have a happy time, and you will let them be. You will mind your own business and let them have their opinions and say their stupid words. Really, you got to prepare your mind for that. Because it's aversion. It's attachment not getting what it wants. It's a view that you think you're right. How dare grandma be this way? How dare my sister be that way? You build it up all outside, you know, to your family, your friends, you know, they know you're going to go for lunch. And then, of course, you're going to have problems. So you change your thoughts. You change your speech first. You zip your lip. You don't go on about her to anybody. Let it be. And then you decide, I'm there for their sake. I'm there for 4 hours, and you enjoy yourself for that 4 hours. And then you go home with a happy mind. I mean, we can all do it. You just have to decide, prepare yourself, you know. It's huge. It's huge, because we all know this. Only so many times you can keep having a fight with somebody. As I said, the straw, one day there'll be the straw that breaks the camel's back, you know. We know this. We know this. We know the pain of it. And it's an enormous practice. I mean, almost like a surprise to me over the years, how it is with my family. You know, it's really a surprise. I wouldn't have thought it, you know, that it actually gives space for good things to come. It gives space for rejoicing. It gives space for talking about things that you have in common. You got to make an effort. We've got to make an effort. But this is about the speech. This is not even about controlling your mind. This is about controlling your speech. And it sounds, like I said to us, in our culture, it sounds boring, but it's quite a revelation. And this is interestingly the point about the Buddhist views. You know, if you look at the Lam Rim, this packaging of Buddhist teaching that the Tibetans have, this is the point. You don't start looking at your mind until you get to the middle scope. You don't start learning about the mind and the delusions until the middle scope. The earlier part, junior school, entry level, grade 1, as I like to call it, that's where you live in vows, you control your body, you control your speech. You know, all the vows are only about body and speech. They're not about the mind. Buddha's little list of 10 don'ts, so boring. The first 7 are only about the body and speech. We don't sort of join the dots, you know, it's really quite profound, because they're the servants of your crazy mind. Given that we're driven by attachment, driven by anger, driven by pride and arrogance, I mean, join the universe, folks, then they're going to be expressed through our mouth, you know. So at least control the mouth. Control the mouth. And if you don't even want to say nice words, at least don't say bad words. Good start, you know. And that's the point about Buddha's teachings. There's no discussion in the first level of Buddha's teachings to go and be loving and kind to people. No, just don't harm them. That's already tremendous. Merely don't kill them, don't steal from them, don't jump on the wrong partner, don't lie, don't badmouth, don't abuse, don't rabbit on about nothing. It's body and speech. This is already tremendous practice. If, you know, if we could all get to the point of having controlled, genuinely, nicely harnessed body and speech, we'd be a marvelous person, because already you're helping your mind. If you can control the servants of your mind gets the benefit, you know. then it's easier to meditate. Then it's easier to see your crazy mind and control the delusions. But the body and speech is the big one. And this is where we get into trouble. I mean, people with good behavior don't get into trouble. They might have uncontrolled thoughts. It's okay, but they at least don't harm other people. And that's been all my life, my big problem. Shooting off the mouth, thinking I'm so clever, you know. Nothing wrong with your heart, dear. It's just your behavior. I'll never forget that as long as I live. It was a revelation for me. It gave me space, actually, you know. So that's what I want to say. Then you're going to have to ask me questions now. We have a discussion. Only 20 minutes, but that's fine. Come on, talk to me. How long have we got? 1 hour or 90 minutes?
1 hour, Venerable Robina.
Okay, good. So I've just taken up 21 of them. So come on, talk to me now, people.
There is
Ask
a
me
question. So
good.
Sanchezi has asked, what about when you can't stand certain gestures unavoidable to see from a person at the table?
A gesture, like you mean burping or picking their teeth? Give an example, darling. Gestures. I mean, putting their pants down. I mean, how bad? Sweetie pie. Come on, express. Who's the question from?
Sanchezi, you can just unmute yourself and ask your question.
Unmute. Ask your question, darling. It's a very interesting question. Come on. No.
They've written in the chat, scratching head.
Oh, darling, I know. Well, some of us might be a bit, okay, this is very, well, this is only scratching their own head. Maybe if you're scratching your head, you better tell them to stop. Of course, darling, listen, we've all got our own things, haven't we? Some of us can't stand like burping. Some of us can't stand someone slurping their tea. I mean, there's little things like that will make us kill somebody. What can you do? I mean, if you're in company and if you're at a dining room table, you're going to have to control. You're just going to have to, and try and think of it, not just to be Pollyanna, but try and think it's for your benefit. You know you don't want to fight. So if you can't cope, you just have to, if you've decided you're going to go, if you decide you're going to sit at the table and you can't help but have them across front of you, you're going to see them scratch their head. You're going to know they're going to scratch their head, but you're going to have to accept to live with it. Or you have to get up. Maybe if you can't cope, oh, excuse me, I've got to go to the toilet, and you rush off to the toilet, have a little weep. I mean, I'm not kidding, but I'm kidding, I mean, if you've chosen to be there, this is part of the deal. You've chosen to be among these wacky people who pick their noses and scratch their teeth and get drunk and say rude words. What can you do? And if you can't cope, if you know, this is the point now, if you know you really can't cope, then you have to make the decision not to go. In other words, the key point is this. It's very hard for us to be accountable. So we feel, oh, I've got to go to Christmas lunch. And then we feel like a victim and then we blame everybody. But we're not a victim. If we can really be accountable and you know who you're going to meet at Christmas lunch, then you decide, I can handle it and I will do my best, and you don't become a victim. But if you really can't handle it, take responsibility and say you can't come. You can't have it both ways. It's quite blunt, really. We can't have it both ways. What else, people? Any questions at all?
There's a question here from Lana, Venerable Rabina. Lana is saying, speaking about issues with others in some ways helps me process and understand myself and my relationships better. Could you please discuss the line between helpful analysis and damage analysis?
Of course. There's nothing more marvelous than having someone to talk to. But it's got to be an agreement. It's like when you go to play tennis with somebody, you can't force a person to play tennis. You can't, they can't whack balls at you without you agreeing to have balls hit at you. So it's got to be a mutual agreement that you want to talk about things. And that means, you want to, and that means you want to discuss, and that you want that person to be a sounding board for you. So there's two things, there's different things here. Listen to this. One kind of way of putting this is this. I like this analogy of the two wings of the bird. One is the wisdom wing, which really is all this nuts and bolts of being your own therapist, working on your mind, controlling your body, controlling your speech, abiding by the laws of karma. That's really the wisdom wing, and that's all the work you do on yourself. Then you've got the compassion wing, which is the benefit of others. So if you think about it, if we can really be rigorous, if you're with others, then your job is to be there for them. That's the compassion wing. But if you want to have a talk, then the reason to talk to a person in private, to have a discussion, have a conversation, they've got to agree. And then the reason for it is for you to get clear what you think. Then they've got to know that that's the purpose of your talking. They've got to be willing to have a conversation with you to enable you to get clear what you think. There's got to be a real agreement for the basis of that conversation. Otherwise, it's just you forcing your thoughts upon somebody. And if they don't want to listen, you're in trouble. So it's got to be an agreement, you know. Speech is very powerful. If you can just use your speech to help others, that's pretty incredible. But if it's going to be for your benefit, you better choose that person very carefully. You've got to trust them because you're going to open up your heart to them. That's why we get hurt by so many people, because we just go blah, blah to anybody. And then we wonder why it backfires, you know. So choose a person very carefully. It's marvelous to communicate with somebody. It's marvelous to talk things through. But if it's just vomiting and being angry and complaining about other people, that's not useful. You've got to really know the difference in your mind. The reason to talk, in other words, is to help you get clear. That's a good reason. But the person has to agree to that. It's a really important point, you know. We know the difference. I hope that helps. What else is there, Amy? Something else there?
There's no other questions there at the moment, but if I may I'm just thinking about that scenario myself, because I found myself in exactly that situation yesterday where I was offloading about a family member to another family member. And so what I'm hearing is that if you wanted to get your thoughts clear about how to handle a person, it's good to have a conversation with someone, but you say from the outset, I need to talk to you about such and such, and then you know that you're doing the analysis rather than just gossip.
Well, yeah, I mean, otherwise it's just, you know, because that person you're talking to wants to support you, and then while you're bad mouthing Mary and Judy's saying, yeah, I know what you mean, she is like this, then it just becomes gossip and it becomes poison. And then next minute they're talking about you, you know. So you've really got to be so cautious whom we speak to. This is not meant to be paranoid. This just means intelligent, being grown up about it. You know, if you've got a 3-year-old in front of you, you talk appropriately. If you've got a stranger in front of you, you talk appropriately. You've got to know who that person in front of you is and what you can and can't show them. I mean, when we're really kind of needy and we're poor, we don't know our own thoughts. We don't know what we think because we haven't looked deeply inside. We want to vomit everything out to anybody who'll listen to us. I mean, I'll never forget one time on a flight, this woman in front talking to another woman, and the woman just casually out of politeness said, how are you? And the next hour, this other woman just pouring her heart out about anything in her life. It was clear she was quite frantic. And because we don't know how to talk to each other, and we don't know how to, crucially, we don't know how to process our own thoughts. So it was like overwhelming, you know, and we do that because we have no self-respect, because we don't have tools for understanding our own minds. So we need incredible, it's like you go to a therapist, you know, you treat it with incredible respect, and that person would never talk about you. So you have to really choose whom you speak about yourself to. This is not paranoia, it's just intelligence. It's self-respect, actually. It's incredibly important. Not to mention the harm you do to other people, but we often open ourselves like that and make ourselves completely vulnerable, you know, and we wonder why people badmouth us. It's terrible. We have to be so cautious. Can't stress that enough. To have the idea, I mean, if we can be like bodhisattvas, the bodhisattva one is very clear. When you're with others, try and think that you're there for them. So that's why I'm saying go to the Christmas lunch, deciding I'm there for them. Leave yourself at the door. You have to make a decision, you know. Leave yourself at the door. Leave your neediness to be heard, and you wish your sister would listen to you, and why doesn't someone ask you what you think? Leave that at the door and just decide you're going to go, and you just be there for the other people and smile and be happy, you know. I mean, it's easy if you decide it. Because it's too dangerous otherwise, especially when people are drinking. God, you know, it's like a nightmare. But what we can do, you know. And the thing is also, again, I have to stress, if you really feel you cannot handle the people there, you have to decide not to go and risk your reputation. You can't say, oh, I must go, I'll get criticized, and then have a fight. You can't have it both ways. You've got to be grown up. You've got to be accountable. You decide, if I'm going to go, then you'll do your best. And if you can't handle it, you don't go, and let people find fault in you. That's their problem, you know. Got to be courageous. Hello, Drew. Talk to me.
Yes. Hi. Do you have, I guess I'm kind of looking for some advice on how best to deal with the situation where, you know, I think you were saying about choose the person you speak to. And this is my ex-partner, and she was just quite verbally abusive. And a couple of years ago, I decided it was best to not continue with that connection, as it wasn't very healthy for me, as she was quite verbally
Okay, good. Yes,
disrespectful
good. So then,
and abusive. So I was thinking about your teachings and about applying wisdom, and I decided to remove myself from that space. But then I've always been having this voice at the back of my head, maybe a bit of guilt, a bit of regret about maybe I could have, should have found a way to talk to her. So from a Buddhist perspective, how do you deal with this conflict between exercising wisdom?
I understand, darling. I think it's a bit like, if you're using, I mean, we're a work in progress, we have to know where we're at. We have to know how capable we are, how advanced we are in our practice. It's a bit like playing tennis. If you every day are only in grade 1 tennis and you've got some mean, nasty player who whacks the ball at you every day, you could and maybe I should have tried harder. Maybe I should have tried harder. No, you have to know where you're at. And obviously it seems to me you made a wise decision, because you didn't want to be abused. You don't blame this person. That's where they're at. But, you know, if now you're having second thoughts, I mean, maybe if the second thoughts are you'd still like to be with them, I mean, is that what you're really saying? You're having second thoughts about your choice, that you rather like to be with them again? Because that's a different discussion.
Yeah, not in a romantic sense, no, but I do feel.
Why do you think you want to even have contact? Not out of guilt. Sometimes just karma finishes. Karma is over. Sometimes it's just over. I mean, do you feel you miss the person, you want to talk to them, or you're just feeling guilty, do you think? What is it?
Maybe is this perhaps more guilt, but this a discomfort. Is a discomfort that, you know, I kind of severed a connection, and I'm having, I guess, doubts as to did I do that?
Okay, so you feel more it's to do with you failed. You think you failed.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's really not appropriate. We're all human beings, Drew. We are all got certain level of capability. You seem to have made a wise decision. Is it not been helpful for you since you left this person? You felt you've been able to grow as a human being now?
Oh, absolutely, yes. It was the right decision.
I don't think I mean, guilt is just really, I mean, one way of talking about guilt is internalized anger. It's an exaggerated expectation that you should have done better than you did, but also it's kind of internalizing what other people think. Oh, I should be this and I should be that, and they think. I mean, I think you'd be very clear in hearing the different voices in your head, and I think you'll just find it's kind of just, it's a bit of sort of self-criticism and not necessary. I mean, we're all human and we move on. It's okay, and learn from your mistakes. Don't have negative thoughts about the person, but also don't have negative thoughts about yourself. It's perfectly fine. And you put it this way, if there is still a karmic connection between you, you'll bump into each other again. Something will happen. So let it just rest. Don't force it. Allow it just to be, you know, and see what ripens. But
Thank you.
I don't think you did anything wrong. I think you did a good job.
Thank you.
Good, Drew. Who's the other hand? There was one up. Who was it?
Freddie had their hand up. Freddie,
Oh,
did you
Freddie,
still want
good. Talk to me, Freddie. Where are you?
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry I have no video. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hello, Venerable. Thank you so much for having this offering for us. And
Good.
it's been a year that I've been following you now. So thank you so
Good.
much.
Good job.
Okay, so I hear what you've said about, you know, making the choice to be at that dinner or not. How do you tolerate, though, the people that are at the dinner that make you insane?
I
No,
know,
I mean,
darling. I know.
like my
So
mother-in-law, I adore. My father-in-law makes me want to set myself on fire. So how do you tolerate that?
that's the whole point about what practice is. Let's do the analysis. Let's do the analysis, Freddie. Let's just do the Buddhist analysis. Okay, shall we do that? Freddie?
Yes,
Shall I
I'm
do
here.
the Buddhist analysis? We've got to analyze the problem accurately, and then we can see if we can handle the solution. So the problem is always, like Lord Buddha tells us, attachment. So what's attachment in Freddie? Like everybody else's, attachment is this kind of assumption that I should get what I want. So there's an assumption deeply embedded in your being, join the universe, honey, that the assumption is that people should behave in a way that satisfies my needs. Can you hear that? That's what's underneath it, darling, because aversion, which is anger, is the response when attachment doesn't get what it wants, and then you paint a picture. So maybe your brother, whoever it was you said, maybe he is mean, maybe he is ugly, maybe he does bad things. That might be true, but then what it is in you that's interpreting that person, that's called anger or aversion. Aversion is the thought that is the basis of anger, and that exaggerates the ugliness. So attachment is the basis of your anger, because attachment wants what you want. And because his behavior doesn't suit what you want, then your aversion arises. And therefore what he says and what he does appears disgusting to you. Are we communicating so far?
Yes, absolutely.
This is the universe, honey. Join the universe. There's nothing unique or special about it. It's everybody has got examples like this. So at least if you know, it's your aversion. And so then how do you tolerate something your attachment doesn't like? That's why at least you don't say the words, and that means you got to kind of grit your teeth. If you can't actually learn to, a powerful alternative, it all depends on where we're at, Freddie. The most basic level is zip your lip. The next level is to work on that aversion in your mind and try to know it's just a fabrication because of your attachment. Do that analysis. But at least when you're there, at least zip your lip. Don't groan. Don't pull long faces. Don't talk about him to somebody else. Don't talk about him in advance. Just leave it there. That's at least the best you can do. Now, the next level, if you're daring to practice the compassion level, then that would mean, and you could try that before you get to meet him for lunch, you could start to search for some of his good qualities. Think even now in advance some of his good qualities, because when we have anger picks out only the bad things and paints the picture of the person looking like that. You know that yourself when there are people who can't stand you, because all they're doing is seeing the bad things, and then anger exaggerates those. So if you're really brave, in advance, maybe you think of a half a dozen or one or two things that are good about him, and you might even be surprised that you might even notice those in between the disgusting ones. There's a couple of techniques just there, okay?
I like, and will say that I do try to coach with softness in my heart, knowing that kind of having an understanding of he behaves this way because I understand is so cantankerous and awful and everything. But I guess my question is, how best do I purify after
that's
being...
that's a totally different discussion, darling. That's another question altogether. You said, how can I tolerate? And I gave the answer to that question. But how do you purify it? Well, that's, you do your practice every day, and you purify the bad, the thoughts you have and the negative thoughts you have about him, and so on and so forth. But the really powerful day-to-day practice, this is the immediate one, which already purifies, is just try and think of some of his good qualities. Honestly, it sounds almost so boring, but it's really quite powerful. It's really quite powerful, because he might be doing the things you actually think he's doing, because we all believe our picture is true. But there are other things there that, because you're angry with him, because you have aversion for him, you can't see those other things. And that's a very powerful practice to do. What do you think?
Understood. Yes, understood. Yeah? Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, sweetheart. Who else then?
Venerable Ravina, Stacey had another question about purification. Stacey was saying, is there a quick purification practice I could do in the moment if I do engage in non-virtuous speech?
Yeah, as Lama Yeshe says, the most practical way to put it, Lama Yeshe says, we create negativity with our mind and therefore with our body and speech. So we purify it by creating positivity with our mind and body and speech. So just like if you're playing the piano and you notice you play a wrong note, you don't sit there and torture yourself for 25 minutes. You fix it right there. I better play the right note. So you just do that. So the second you say those bad words or something, you just quickly in your mind, that's ridiculous would be, and give the man a break, and you fix it. The sooner you can catch it, the sooner you can just apply the antidote, which is the very opposite, just the opposite thought. That's it. Don't torture yourself over it. It's okay. Go on, someone else.
Yes, there's a question from Vandana. Vandana asks, how would you stay neutral when two people, close relatives, are arguing and they both want you to intervene and take a side?
Just say you got to go to the toilet. I'm really not kidding. You have to have you have to know that you have the power to walk away. You just have to know that when we're family, it's like we're glued together and we don't think we have a choice. You don't have to give a lecture. Oh, I love both of you. No, you just, oh my God, I've got to go to the toilet. I really mean this very sincerely. You do not do it. There's no benefit. This is all politics. You just do not do it. You don't make a fuss of it. You don't make them feel bad. You just do anything that makes you do something else. You just have to have that decision. There's no point in standing around. Let them have their fight on their own. You don't want to hear their rubbish thoughts. I think you just have to extricate yourself quite quickly without upsetting them and just by walking away. Suddenly, you have to find a method, but you have to decide in advance you're going to do that and not get involved and not open your mouth. You have to know in advance your strategy. It's very important. There's no benefit whatsoever. I tell them I'm Switzerland neutral. You can say like that. If you can, yeah, that'll do. It's good enough. But that's sort of, you just got to be not antagonize them, especially if they've been drinking too much. Or anything, whatever, or something. Come on then, next. Who else?
Fiona has a question about social media. Fiona says that she starts off wanting to help make the world a better place with good intentions, for example, speaking up against someone saying something racist, but she ends up becoming passive aggressive, she says, and saying something nasty. So she's wondering how
on social media. On social media. Social media should give you a little bit more space. It's a bit quick. You've got a bit more time before you type something between thinking it and saying it, haven't you? So you've got to really just watch it and have more. You've got the time, the space, I don't know. It's all to do with control, all to do with practicing discipline and making a decision every day. That's why the purification practice that, as Lama Zopa says, which we do at the end of the day, is so powerful. You regret the rubbish, you have compassion, and then finally you vow not to do it again. You've got to program your mind like that. And as Lama Zopa says, we are insane not to do this practice every day. It's like you're learning to program your mind. You have to learn to program your mind, have strategies of how you're going to act and how you're going to be. It takes time. It takes time, It takes time. But surely, like I said, there's a bit more space between thinking something and typing it than between thinking it and saying it. So a little bit more space there to have an intelligent response. It's just practice. Yes, Sonia. Hello, darling. Talk to us.
Was that me?
Yep.
Oh, I missed it. Sorry. This is a little bit different. So one of the things that happens for me is that, well, I don't have family, so it's more friends.
Yes.
That I internally struggle with that and it's even said to me, I'm not the person I used to be, which is true. And in their mind, and in my mind too. So I struggle with that people, there's a sense of, are they seeing me because they feel sorry for me or they think they should include me? And that's in the background. And so I'm trying not to have that be there, but I'm conscious that I can't do what I used to do for people. So
I'm a bit confused, darling. Say it in another way. I'm a bit confused.
All right. So it's Christmas and I have a friend who's doing their family Christmas. We don't see each other very often because I don't see people very often anymore because of, the injuries and things that I have. I'm not in the world in the same way.
Mm-hmm. So then go on.
And it's not just at Christmas, but when people come to see me, there's often a sense that they're doing it out of we should.
So you mean because you mean what you're saying is because you're a little bit incapacitated these days, you feel people don't really love you, that they're coming to see you out of pity. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I struggle with that because I can't
do
what I used to do for people.
But are you confident that your assessment is correct? That they're coming out of pity and not out of affection?
I'm not
That's the key
sure.
to me. That's what I'm hearing. That's the point I'm hearing most.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I struggle with it. Yeah.
So so then the question to ask yourself is, what is it in you that makes you doubt that a person might actually have affection for you? Is that the question, do you think? Or are you confident that they don't have affection for you and they're just doing it out of guilt? Oh, we should go and see Samia, she's on her own. We better go and pay respects.
I think I feel torn and I'm not sure. And so what I used to do, just to make this clearer, is I used to be the one that looked after everybody. I was the one who would invite people and make the dinners and do all the rest of it.
Okay.
And
So
now I don't
do
see
that.
people. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't see people. And so when I do, when it's an occasion like this, I'm not sure how to behave is one thing. And I struggle
it sounds to me
internally
if
with
you're the
that.
one who's used to helping other people and now people look like they're trying to help you, maybe you've got to learn just to be be humble and accept their kindness and don't second guess it.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that's all I'm hearing. I'm trying to hear your words.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Why? I mean, that's
You'd
the
think-
point that it's not easy. Why is it not easy to accept someone else's help? Even if it's slightly duty bound. Just be grateful and be kind to them and give them a cup of tea and a piece of cake and I hope you're well and be loving and be content with it, maybe instead of sitting there worrying about it.
I think that's what I try to do. And I guess
Good.
I just keep working on that internal part that like finds it hard. That's my
I think that's what I'm hearing
struggle.
most. That's the one I think
Yeah.
really it's a huge one. Accepting is the commonest one from people, I think, to accept this when we're feeling a bit. I think it's a common one. Because it's easy to, I mean, I think it's a good point to think about, but I think it's against yourself. So I think it's really important you fix it and be content with it.
Yeah, I think it is a good one for everyone because, well, maybe not everyone, but
We're talking to
in
you right now.
myself,
Yeah.
it's almost like, yes, it's easier actually to be the one that gives and
Does the acting,
things.
he goes out there and does it exactly because we can be nice and control. But now you've got to be a bit humble. We don't like being humbled.
And not very good at being humble.
Can't we? You know.
It's
I
so
know.
true.
Be brave, darling. I know I'm seeing that when I'm getting older. People try to protect me and take me across the road and be careful, Rabina, you might fall. And it's true. I mean, it's true, but I kind of think, Jesus, God, come on, mate. But it's true. Now I should just let people take me across the road and be done with it. Or give me their seat on the train. It's a bit shocking. I'm in New York and they have the subways, people give me their seat. I happily take it now. Okay. Thanks, Sammy. That's a good point.
Thank you.
Okay. Who else, darlings? Come on. What else? 10 minutes to go. Time gone.
Jeff has a question about anxiety.
Jeff, talk to me, darling.
Jeff is saying, I have ongoing issues with anxiety and I've tried a variety of methods, including practicing loving kindness towards anxiety, noticing the anxiety and turning the mind to wholesome thoughts instead. Can you provide your wisdom on this?
I think I need to talk to her. Who was it?
Jeff.
Jeff, talk to me, darling. Where's your face? I want to see you. Jeff, can you show your face, sweetheart? Jeff, I have to ask you some questions. Where's Jeff? I can't see Jeff. Talk to me, Jeff.
Would you like to unmute yourself, Jeff, and ask your question?
I want to ask you questions. Here's Jeff. Where's Jeff? He doesn't want to. If he can, Jeff. Otherwise, I'll do my best to answer. See, I think anxiety is such a huge word. It's got a multitude of people will give a multitude of answers to when they talk about their anxiety. So it seems to me, so we do the analysis again, just do the analysis, Jeff, to everyone. I don't know how to get to the main. He says something. What is it? I don't know how to get, what does he say? What does Jeff say there, please? Read it out.
I don't know how to get to the main page to unmute. Jeff, I will click on request to unmute and you should get a pop-up and you can just click on the microphone in the bottom of your screen. You there, Jeff? Let me try
No
something.
mic at the bottom. Okay.
Okay, let me try something else here, Jeff. One moment.
So meanwhile, just have one. You help Jeff, please, and I'll
Yes.
look at another question here. So that's Jeff. Okay, hang on. I want to come back to you, Jeff. So there's social media, and then there's another one.
There's one from Fiona.
Okay, Fiona, go on. Talk to Fiona. I'll come back to you, Jeff. Go on.
There's a warm, fuzzy feeling helping
Oh,
others.
Sorry, that's not a question. I was
Oh.
just commenting on what Sami was saying. Just
Oh,
commenting
okay.
on yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
It's
All
not a
right.
question.
Okay, darling. Okay, Fiona. Good. So anything, any
It's
help
Jeff
with Jeff?
here. I figured out on how to unmute.
Good, Jeff. Talk to me, darling. Come on.
Thank you.
But tell me literally how anxiety sounds. What is it? What is it about? Is it about the past, about the future, about who you are, about your failures, about you're never good enough, about what people think of you? Tell us more precisely.
I think I experienced like early childhood trauma. So I think there's always a sense that I'm never safe, that I can't, I'm always waiting for that next moment to be a moment that is where I'm not in a safe place. When I
So when
apply
you're with other
sati,
people, when you're on
this is
your
what I
own,
see.
when you're on the street, when you're at work with people, when does it manifest, Jeff?
Well, it's kind of it's sort of snowballed, and it's kind of a general anxiety now. I feel constantly anxious.
Okay, so then I hear what you're saying. You're giving, so what you just said then was a bit of an analysis of why you think you're anxious. So what I'm trying to get at is, forget the past for a second, try and tell me about now, how it plays out in a day or in an hour or in a minute. What's the content of the thoughts? Because it all comes down to thoughts. Is it about who you are? Is it about what people think of you? Is it about not getting something? Is it about worried about the shops will be closed? Is it worried that the person in the car behind you is shouting at you? I mean, just be a bit more precise, because anxiety is massive. What does it worry about? Don't give me the theory about the past. Forget that. It's the present that matters, the thought content now.
Well, what I notice, I notice the physical manifestations of it, and I have aversion to that.
What are the physical manifestations of your anxiety?
Tension around in the sternum, great tension there, pressure in the neck.
So all of this is what's interesting. So Jeff, so then I think this is the thing. I think over the years we build up these habits, don't we? As you're suggesting, over the years you've built up these habits and so then it gets so, and then our biggest tragedy, Jeff, this is just food for thought. Our biggest tragedy is that we don't actually notice the thoughts second by second. So we wait until the body feels something. And the body really is just the tip of the iceberg. The body is where we call the feelings. And that's when we only then begin to notice. But what we've got to do is drill down beyond the feeling to attempt to notice the thoughts second by second by second by second. This is not easy. It's an unpacking kind of process. But in general, you see, this is why I'm interesting. I'm asking you the questions. What is the anxiety about? And you haven't yet even told me. You're just giving me, I mean, I'm not being rude now. It's kind of interesting that you can't say what it is you're worried about. Is it, I mean, can you hear what I'm saying? Can you even say anything? Is it about how you think? Is it about what you think of yourself? Do you put yourself down all the time? Do you think people are not liking you? What's the kind of the general character of the anxious thoughts?
I mean, you're 100% right. And I don't take it as an insult at all. I totally agree with you.
Then you need to do this, darling. I mean, because you see that even in the West, we say there's like 1,000 thoughts a second. Buddhism agrees with this. But our tragedy is because we haven't spent our time, like since you were a little boy and bad things happened, you didn't know, you weren't equipped to know how to respond to those events. You didn't know how to interpret them. So what happens is all the attachment in you, this to be a good little boy and to be loved, that gets thrust in the face. Then aversion arises in you, then fear arises, and then you develop these habits. And we don't even articulate those. So until we can articulate them in a sense, or find other methods to counteract, we keep all the old habits, Jeff. I mean, it takes time to unpack. but it's coming right down to the mind, all the thousands of thoughts in there. And this is where the Buddha's expertise is really excellent to help us give us means to listen to these thoughts. I mean, it takes time, Jeff, because clearly the thoughts aren't happy thoughts, because the body's all tense, you're feeling worried and anxious. It's like habits you built up for so long. I mean, in various ways, we're all the same, and to quite subtle degrees, but it's each, I mean, yeah, I don't know what else to say to you, Jeff. I mean, do you ever think of your good qualities? Do you ever try to say good things about yourself and practice those?
Yeah, that's a big part of my practice right now, actually, is turning to wholesome thoughts,
That's
gladdening
right.
the mind.
And practicing that. Don't expect results overnight, Jeff. This is the point.
Yes.
I mean, things really, you've practiced a life like all of us of negative thoughts, fearful thoughts, and then they take over. So we've got to replant those, reprogram ourselves. I mean, in a sense, Buddha's a really good cognitive therapist by changing our thoughts. It takes time, Jeff, but have confidence in your inner being. Have confidence that it is inside you. Have confidence you've got the qualities. You've got to have that confidence that not just the negative thoughts define you. You've got to have that confidence.
What I can tell you is that anxiety first arose for me in a significant way when my mother died. And I was an adult at the time.
Because you relied upon your mum. You loved your mum, yeah?
Yeah. So I think when that was broken, there was a tremendous fear
wasn't there to
came up.
protect you anymore. Yeah.
Right.
But like with all our mums, we have to learn to kind of extricate ourselves, don't we? So we have to do that whether mentally or physically. So then you are on your own now. So it's possible, Jeff. No matter how old we are, it is possible. The fact that you're even coming into a program like this, the fact that you're even thinking about these things indicates that there's so much good in you. It sounds so corny, but it's really quite profound, because the irony of ego, we always focus on the negative. This is the irony of ego. I've never yet met a person who says, Rabina, I can't stop thinking good thoughts. This is the irony of ego, Jeff. So have confidence. This is where Lama Yeshe was always so marvelous. He tried to get us to have confidence that the goodness is in there, and it's clearly in there. I mean, you're not going around killing and stealing and lying and raping people, which indicates you've got good ethics. Even that alone is something unbelievably precious on this earth, that you've got good ethics. Don't discount that. That's good qualities that you've got.
I've seen that because I've been able to inhibit the hindrances by entering jhana.
Okay, there you go. Amazing. Well, that's very special. It's very unusual. You're very fortunate. So you've got to just write a new script in your head. It's not a joke to say that. It really is true, Jeff. But be patient, sweetheart, and go one step at a time, and have confidence in your fundamental good nature. That's the ground you have to grow from, okay?
Thank you, Venerable.
Be confident, Jeff. Please, darling, and don't give up, okay?
Thank you.
Don't give up, Jeff.
Thank you.
Good, sweetheart. So why don't we just, for 3 minutes to the end, sit, close your eyes, be very natural, and do what Lama Yeshe says, just watch your mind, okay? Just watch your thoughts. In other words, don't have any opinions about them. Let all the crazy thoughts, I think of our crazy roommates. They're all our crazy roommates, okay? Let them just chat away and just sit back and just watch. No opinion, no involvement in them. Don't suppress them. Don't wish they weren't there. Don't wish they'd go away. Just simply for 3 minutes, watch your thoughts. That's it. Just watch them. Let them come and let them go. Mahamudra. It's called Mahamudra. So people, darling, people just know the nature of mind is clear. This is not how neuroscientists talk. Your brain is not clear. We're not discussing that. We're discussing your actual subjective cognitive process itself. So learn to just let the thoughts come and go sometimes. That's one very good approach. Let them come and let them go. Don't give them any power. That's it, people. Never give up, never give up, never give up. Chang chob sem chog rinpoche, ma ke panam ke gyuchig, ke panyam pa me payang, gong ne gong du pa ba shog. Thank you, precious ones.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, darling.